Hello, Allan Aguirre with your Incorruptible 2-minute warning. And it's a Friday. So we are going to go into Friday mode. That's right. There we go, Friday mode. We have been talking about Matthew 23 predominantly. What are we calling it? The 7 woes to the Scribes and Pharisees. He's basically letting them know that what they do and how they do it is incorrect. It's not good. And that they're hypocrites because of how they do what they do. And, you know, what it is that they're doing and how they're going about it. And then, unfortunately, I have been involved in a Facebook. Yeah. I have been involved with a Facebook interaction on my friend's wall about a particular minister that has a big church and you know, he's on radio and TV and all that. And a lot of people hate him. And I simply asked, have you ever even actually listened or heard this guy's teachings? Because, you know, everyone thinks he's like, I don't know, the devil incarnate. And so I asked, have you even listened to any of his teachings? Because, you know, I know you think he's XYZ, but have you ever heard him say anything to suggest that he's XYZ? And 90% of the time, I mean, easily 95% of the time, no, they haven't actually really heard. Not only do they not actually really heard his teaching, or nor have they actually heard him say anything to make him such a bad guy. So then, you know, that begs the question, why then? You know, well, it's because public opinion. The majority of people think this about this guy, and it's unfounded. It's like, in my opinion, we have been saying it has been suggested for 50 years that Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles. Well, if you watch the Get Back documentary, you'll see I don't think that's necessarily the case. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. And there's actually been articles that have been released since then suggesting that, man, we all owe her an apology. If anything, John didn't help the situation and broke them up. But Yoko actually really didn't do anything to break them up. You might not like her, but you can't say that she broke up the Beatles because you don't like her. And that's what I'm suggesting to these people. You just don't like this guy. It's not because he's teaching heresy, which they're all stating that he is teaching heresy, because he's not. I've listened to a lot of his teaching, and he's literally not saying anything or teaching anything we don't teach here. He just does it differently. He does it better. If you want to know the truth, I think he's better at this than I am. You know, and so I simply asked in this Facebook thread, if, you know, have you ever actually listened to any of his teaching? Well, so of course, I suggest that he's not any of those things. He doesn't say any of those things. He's not a heretic. He's not teaching false doctrine, blah, 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 blah. Is it possible that you're just biased? Is it possible that you just don't like the guy? And that's why you're saying what you're saying. Well, of course, you know what happens when you tell a bunch, and I hope some of you are watching this. I really do, because I'm going to tell you what I think about you here. It'll be easier because I'm absolutely, and for the rest of you, I've been dealing with these people. Are not only are they Muppets, but they're not very intelligent. They're idiots. Let me just make it very clear. They're the foolish man in Proverbs, in every regard. And You know what happens when you tell a bunch of one-talent believers that they're one-talent believers, right? Because they're like, there's more of them in 2022 than there were when Jesus was, because the church was new. The church hadn't even really started, right? It wasn't until Acts 2, the church starts type of thing. That's what I mean. They pick up stones, and I am absolutely, and so I stopped. As of yesterday, I'm no longer talking to these people over there because I'm done literally tossing my pearls. Jesus said, "Don't give your pearls." It's like pearls before swine. What happens if? Let's read it. I don't even know where it is. I'll have to look it up because it's not like Other than that, how you doing? How you doing? I'm not a very good Joey impersonator, but how you doing? It's Friday. It's going to be Shabbat in a few hours. All right. Pearls before swine. Why am I talking about this? Why am I bringing up my little Facebook world to you? Well, because it brings up this whole issue of hypocrisy that we're talking about. What is Jesus telling these people? And why is he telling it to them? Does somebody have it already? Doing good. How you doing? Yeah. All right, Matthew 7:6. Matthew. Gotta love Matthew. Yeah. Alan, what do you mean you don't know that? Yeah, no, sorry. I haven't memorized the whole Bible. Matthew 7. Let's read it. Let's see what it says here. It says here, "Judge not that you be not judged, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, "Let me take the speck out of your eye," when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. See, I told you if it fits in with our, you hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Okay. So, I simply ask, have you ever heard this guy's teaching? Have you ever really heard it or studied it? I mean, what are you basing your position that this guy is the devil on? And they're like, well, he said this and he said that and he said the other. And I'm like, well, do you have a teaching where he says that? Because I've listened to scores of this guy's teachings and he doesn't teach that stuff. So they begin this insanity. It literally is an insanity. The last time I commented, I felt like I was on drugs because of what I had to say in my comment. We'll get to that. And then we'll get to the rest of our week's teaching. I'm just giving you a real life case study of what it is we're talking about. Maybe that's why I had to go through this, because I wasted. It was insane. Anyway. So somebody, since they can't actually go, well, here's a teaching, they instead post like a minute and a half clip. They post like a minute and a half clip of him being interviewed by a secular interviewer. And the interviewer asked him a question about, salvation. And is Jesus the only way to salvation? Of course, that's not the question. But this very unintelligent human being that I'm interacting with, he didn't even bring a knife to a gunfight. He brought a kazoo or one of those bubble things, right? Whatever the question was, his position, and the reason why he shared this video was to say that, he didn't admit, nor did he confess that Jesus is the only way. He He said he wasn't. He skirted the issue. He literally denied, blah, 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 blah. And so I watched it. It's like a minute long. And I'm like, he never said that. He was read something and he agreed with it. He was read something that someone said that talked about the supremacy of Jesus and he's the only way. And this preacher guy said, I agree with that 100%. Jesus is the only way, blah, blah, blah. And I go, he never said what you suggesting, he never said what you're suggesting he said. He agrees with what the interviewer is reading, which is, he goes, yeah, he did. Yeah, he said it. He said it. I'm like, well, no, he didn't say it. He never says it in this video clip. He goes, well, read the transcript. But I'm like, I don't have to read the transcript. I was able to watch this 1 minute clip and understand and comprehend. You're unable to do that. If you can't see that you're bearing false, I never said this, but if the guy's literally bearing false witness and he's using this video clip, and I'm like, that video clip is clickbait. That's all it is. It's clickbait. This minister never suggests what the title of this clickbait piece says or what you're saying. And he goes off. Yes, he is. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And so my next thing is you just don't like the guy. And there's no way I'm going to be able to convince you of this. I literally said that like 2 or 3 times and he keeps coming. And now, and then the looky-loo starts showing up and liking what he's saying. He's got, you've got 2 fans. You got 2 supporters that are just as stupid as you are, if not more, because they're actually on your side. They're actually agreeing with you. So that makes them stupider. Is that even a word? More stupid. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to convince you. I'm not even going to try. It's like you don't have the right, nor do you have the spiritual authority to judge this man. That's my point. My point is whether or not, it doesn't matter. This guy could be a heretic. This guy could be whatever. Why do you think, and I talk about, I break this down, that kind of stuff in this book. Why do you think why do you think it's okay for you to judge this man? All I'm saying is, hey, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with his theology or doctrine or not, I'm not even talking about that. I started this conversation with, have you even actually ever heard this guy say these horrible things you're accusing him of? Do you even know what this guy teaches on? And then my next thing is, you don't have the right, you don't have the authority, you don't have God's permission to judge this man. You don't physically know him. You'll never know him. You'll never meet him. And even if you did, you're never going to walk life with this guy. You don't have, this is my point, you don't have the permission, the okay to judge this guy. Sure I do. Paul says this. And I'm like, this chapter that you just quoted in 1 Corinthians is all about sexual immorality. And you're giving, and your position is based, you're basing your position on half of verse 12. And there's 16 verses in this chapter. They're all about, the majority of the context is sexual immorality. It was about the guy that was having sex with his stepmom. And, you can't make this declaration of, I have the right to do so because Paul told me I do, when Paul's talking directly to the leadership of this church, his church, regarding one of their parishioners that's in grave sin. You don't have the permission or the ability, or you don't have God's okay to, you can't judge people. And so as soon as I say that, it starts getting ugly, right? So I'm just like, and so I bring up David. And so I said, I don't think you guys understand what it is that you're dealing. This is beyond your, so these are the terms. I could literally read you the conversation. It's a really bad state of affairs where the mainstream is like the 80%, right? Mainstream is for example, I was a punk rocker when the rest of the world, when 90% of the rest of the world, when the mainstream world wasn't. So That's what I mean by that. So it's a really horrible look at mainstream Christianity, where they're at psychologically, where they're at mature as far as their maturity, where they're at when it comes to their understanding of the Bible. When it comes right, so the guy starts quoting me the Bible, and I tell him, you know what, you're having a very difficult time understanding and comprehending a 90-second YouTube soundbite that you posted as backup. I'm not really confident in your, how did I say it? In your reading comprehension. It's true. You can't take half of one verse out of a chapter and go, aha! So I tell him, I don't think you guys understand how dangerous the ground that you're treading on is. I think you're derelict in your understanding of what it is that you're doing when it comes to judging this other guy that you don't even know, and wrongfully. Not only are you judging him, but you're judging him wrongfully. You can't even support your allegations in a court of law. You'd be laughed. You're a laughing stock. You'd be, David didn't give an insulting charge or raise a hand against God's anointed. You need to take that into consideration. You need to understand that. And then I heard something that I've never heard before. And some other guy, another Muppet, comes up and goes, God never told David to spare Saul's life. David took that matter into his own hands. And David made a lot of mistakes that hurt the nation, and I think this was one of them. Whoa. That's crazy talk. And here's why that's crazy talk. Let's follow that train of thought to its to the conclusion it's going to take us to. It never says anything like that. What it does say is, I've delivered your, let me just read it. Here's what it does say. I think it was 1 Samuel 15. Let's see. 1 Samuel 15. Let's go there. I think that's where it was. No, that's the Lord rejecting Saul. We're past that point. David anointed king. David and Goliath. Oh yeah, we're way past that. This is when David is in En-Gedi. David's hiding in En-Gedi. Saul hears about it, so he goes to, right. So Saul goes to go get him. He sends like 1,000 guys to go get David. David's hiding in En-Gedi. Have you ever been to En-Gedi? It's beautiful. All right, here we go. He's in the cave in En-Gedi. David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they were down there to him. Oh, no. That's Paul kills the priests. Paul's killing priests now. God. Here we go. Is that... Nope. Chapter 24. 1 Samuel chapter 24. When Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was told, behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all of Israel and went to seek David and his men in front of the wild goats, rocks. And he came to the sheepfolds by the way where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave. And the men of David said to him, and there's a quote, here is the day of which the Lord said to you, quote, behold, I will give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it shall seem good to you. So David arose and stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's robe. And then just doing that, afterward, David's heart struck him because he had cut off a corner of Saul's robe. And he said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to put out my hand against him, seeing he is the Lord's anointed. So David persuaded his men with these words and did not permit them to attack Saul. And Saul rose up and left the cave and went on his way. to suggest that David was in error and functioning in the flesh, and that God never told him to spare Saul, and that's one of the biggest mistakes David did, and it hurt the nation of Israel, is demonic. Because the natural, if you follow that thought, well, let's do the flip side. David cut a piece of Saul's garment and was like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. God forbid I do anything I shouldn't do regarding this man, God's anointed, because he's king. Let's follow that train of thought first. That's mercy. That's compassion. That's grace. Is Saul in right standing? No. But that's not David's responsibility. That's not David's job. It's God's job. Vengeance is his. And he's going to take care of it. It's not on David. See why to suggest that David made a mistake and should have killed Saul then and there is like not even remotely biblical or godly? So David spares Saul, gives him grace, mercy, all that stuff. We are talking, right? We're looking at a picture of Messiah. Did Saul deserve death? Probably. Did David spare him? Yes. Was not David the man after God's own heart? Doesn't it say that? You're the apple of my eye, a man after my own heart. And because you're a man after my own heart, Messiah is coming from your line. Is not God about grace, mercy, compassion? Wouldn't he rather that all men come to the knowledge of his son and be saved? Or is God just ready to just wipe us all out? No, it says that he's merciful, and David's functioning. See, to call David's act of compassion and not killing Saul as a mistake, if you follow that train of thought, then God is a mistake, Jesus is a mistake, and Jesus never should have died for humanity. That's the logical conclusion to that thought process. I can't explain this to this guy. He's too stupid to see that. He can't even see it. How do I know that? Because he said what he said. And all his little idiot minions that are coming against me in this thread are like, yay, liking it and loving it and stuff. See what I'm saying? And so I'm like, wow, good luck with that. That's just insanity. And so I'm like, none of you are even half the man that David was. What gives any of you the right to judge this other man? This part I will read to you because it's so unbelievable that I can't even believe it actually happened. But it happened. It happened for real. So I will read this part to you because it's just amazing. It really is. I remember there's a method to my madness. I'll be tying it all in. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, here we go. So just to give you an idea. So here's what I say. You guys really don't understand what you're messing with. Are all of you seriously unaware of David and how he didn't bring an insulting charge against God's anointed? What makes any of you half the man that David was when you clearly lack any semblance of spiritual discernment, let alone spiritual authority? People hated that. They're mad at that. They're mad at me saying that. And then King David made a personal decision not to touch Saul. God never told him to. By this time, King Saul was a demon-possessed leader stripped of his anointing. And so I went, like I said, thank you for proving my point. They don't have discernment. They don't have spiritual authority. Good luck with all that. And then King David made some major mistakes that cost him the nation dearly. I think this was one of them. And I'm like, and people are liking this. And I'm like, oh my God. And then this genius rises up. Consider your stance, brother, and literally read what I just read, Matthew 7, 1-5. Judge not that you be not judged, for what judgment you judge, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. They're telling me this. And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank, and da-da-da-da, you're a hypocrite, blah, blah, blah. And then they didn't go on where we did, which was about the throwing pearls before swine. And I was like, oh, that's funny. You want me to consider my stance, and you misquote a passage about judging, because see, that's people don't know really what Jesus is actually talking about when it comes to that. Because anyway, we'll get to that later. Maybe, hopefully on this, maybe some other time. But anyway, you want me to consider my stance and you misquote a passage about judging when my entire position in these threads has been warning about judging. Oh, that's rich, I say. That's exactly my point above about the lack of spiritual discernment flying around in here. Again, thank you for proving my point once again. Amazing, right? So they're coming at me for judging when all I've been doing is telling them not to judge. But my correcting them or telling them not to judge is now being equated as judging. And of course the peanut gallery is going, yay, yahoo, woo, right? It's insanity. And so they got back. And again, you make my point. You judge again. Disheartening how it will take something far greater to make you see this error in judgment. And I'm like, this is where I was like this. When you can figure out, and this is what, so I replied, when you can figure out, and this was my last, when you can figure out and legitimately explain to all of us reading how it's okay for the people in this thread to judge this minister, but it's not okay for me to call them out for judging, and I'm the one that is actually doing the judging now for calling them out, the ones actually doing the judging. You let me know. I feel like I'm on drugs just for writing that. It's like trying to have a rational conversation with a left-wing liberal, and we wonder what's wrong with Christianity today. Well, all you have to do is keep reading this thread to find out. Is that insane? That's insane. I'm telling you not to judge this other brother. I'm telling you not to judge this guy that you don't know, this public minister. And my telling you not to judge him, and I'm giving you examples why you shouldn't judge them. You don't have discernment. It's beyond your pay grade. You don't have spiritual authority over this guy. You're misquoting Paul because Paul's talking to the leadership of his church about one of their sheep. And then you misquote Jesus' whole deal about judgment, and you're throwing it at me because I'm telling you not to judge. See, that's insane. That's absolute insanity. Absolute. That's just crazy, crazy, crazy. And this is a behind the scenes look at what I deal with more regularly than I wished. This is the state of the church. And there's no way they can make the transition from church to bride when they think like that, when they process like that, when you can't watch a 90-second video and understand what's going on, I guarantee you, your reading comprehension is crap. And you're not reading the Bible correctly. And you don't know how to read the Bible correctly. And you're going to come out and you're basically a one-verse keyboard warrior. It's insane. And there's nothing I can do about it, right? And it's not like my job to do so. It's just not. That's why I said, like, my second or third time in there, so I'm not going to be able to convince you of this because you just don't like this guy. And because you don't like this guy, you've come to the conclusions that you've come up with. They don't have to be, see, truth, right? It's fluid. That's his truth. And he's apparently, see, I don't agree with everyone's entitled to their own opinion. No, they're not. Who said that? Do we all get trophies for showing up? See, people's opinions aren't, you're suggesting that people's opinions is based on fact or truth. See, it doesn't have to be based on fact and truth. They just have to believe it. I'm a chicken. That's my opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. I'm a chicken. Well, no, you're not, dumbass. You're not a chicken. See what I'm saying? The world is feeding into that. The world is feeding into that spirit and has been for the last few years. They make laws in support of it now. We can't allow that. What do you mean? We can't allow that to enter into the church. It's already in the church, and it's been in the church for thousands of years. See, that's why I say Christianity versus the Bible. Most people believe these people believe Christianity. They don't know what the freaking hell they're reading or understanding what the Bible says. They believe they do, and that's all that matters. See, that's why we do what we do here. Oh my God, I spent way too much time on that crap. But the Pharisees did the same exact thing. That's why in Mark 7, Jesus tells them, your traditions, right? Your Babylonian Talmud, your what you've done with that, your traditions actually make the actual scriptures null and void. And it's you can't do that. See, based on their position, they crucified Jesus. Jesus said, no, you're doing it wrong. No, you can't do that. I'm convinced that the Pharisees really didn't like Jesus because he could do what the prophets of old could do. Heal, raise the dead. See, that's the straw that broke the camel's back. He raised Lazarus from the dead after he was dead for 4 days, and everybody knew it. That was around Purim. And then Passover shows up, and they see when he did that, that's when they determined, all right, we got to kill this guy. A lot of people know about this. We're going to lose our position with Rome, and we're going to lose the people. And you can't fake that. See, that's something else you've heard me talk about. You can't fake raising the dead. You either can or you can't, and they couldn't. They couldn't heal the sick. These people. They couldn't prophesy. They couldn't cast out demons. They couldn't do any of it. Jesus shows up and he's able to do all these things the prophets were known to do. And we will get to that. When do we get to that? Yeah. Next Thursday. See, this is going to continue into next week. Next Thursday, we will talk about what Jesus tells them about the prophets of old. Yeah. Okay, so Matthew 23, verse 16 through 22. Woe to you, blind guides who say, if anyone swears by the temple, it's nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by his oath. Do you see how backwards that is? Now, I'm going to say that I'm going to suggest that Jesus used this literal example because this is actually something that was going on among them. Woe to you, blind guides who say, if anyone swears by the temple, it's nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by his oath. So now you got to keep that oath. Other than that, it was just vain words. You were just talking smack. But now we're going to hold you to it because you swore against the gold of the temple. You blind fools, for which is greater? See, now the people that I'm dealing with on Facebook would now throw Matthew 5 or Matthew 7 at Jesus for judging them and calling them blind fools. Just like the Pharisees. You blind fools, for which is greater? Okay. For which is greater, the gold or the temple that has made the gold sacred? Not very bright, right? So they're not very smart. And you say, if anyone swears by the altar, it is nothing. But if anyone swears by the gift that is on the altar, it could be meat, it could be liquid, it could be wheat, it could be flour, right? He is bound by his oath. You blind men, for which is greater? the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred. See, this is how disconnected they are. For whoever swears by the altar swears by it and by everything on it. And whoever swears by the temple swears by it and by him who dwells in it. Ooh, see, now he took it to the boom, right? Because God dwells in it because the Ark of the Covenant is in there. And God's in the Ark of the Covenant. And whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by him who sits upon it. So let's go back a little bit. Let's look at some of the stuff we've already done. Matthew 23 on Monday. The scribes and Pharisees sit on Moses' seat, so do and observe whatever they tell you. Because, right, they're the ruling authority. They sit on Moses' seat. And when they sat on Moses' seat, they sat there to teach Torah. So you got to do that, Jesus is telling them. You got to do what they're telling you because they're teaching Torah. But not the works they do. Basically, do what they say, but not what they do. Right? For they preach, but do not practice. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear. That's what Mark 7's about. And lay them, Corbett. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to move them with their finger. I'm going to impose all that. So let's say, okay, so we got Chameleon Church. A lot of you function as if I was your pastor, your blah, 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 blah. And let's say I'm like, okay, well, and then I impose these like, all right, crazy stuff. I don't know. You need to walk. You need to do a 5-mile hike with a 50-pound pack, and you need to do it 3 times or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on your shoulders. They're basically imposing this nonsense, this crazy crap on you to be involved, to fit in, to be a part, whatever. But I'm not going to do any of it. I'm not going to put on a 50-pound pack, and sure the hell not going to do a 15-mile hike 3 times. I'm not going to join you in on any of it. But boy, you better do it, right? Sorry, they do all right. Yeah, no. See, the thing is, we're not gonna ask you to do anything we haven't already done or are actually doing. They do all their deeds to be seen by others. For they make their phylacteries, that's the box that they put with the leather strap, and then they wrap the leather around them, right? Jesus was a Pharisee. Jesus would do this, right? For they make their phylacteries broad, right? They made them, bigger than everybody else's. And their fringes long. Some people suggest that their tassels would drop down to their ankles. That's insane. How do you not trip on that? Well, maybe because they're wearing long robes, and so the robes they wouldn't trip on it. But that's insane. See, your tassels are for you, not for them. Tassels are for you to be reminded. See? Tassels are for you to be reminded of his commandment. See, yes, you can see mine, but I don't make a spectacle of them. And I actually have shorter ones too. And and I will cut them. I do cut them when I get them. You can put them in your pocket. No one needs to see them. I hope you could hear that, my microphone. What my point is, tassels are for you, for your recognition of God's commandments and to remind you that you're supposed to keep them. They're not for others to see. They're not for others. I, on the other hand, have to wear them for others to be seen so that they can ask me about it so that I can preach the gospel to them. Not everybody might not have that call or that mandate or whatever. See what I'm saying? Tassels are for your instruction. They're to remind you, not those around you. They don't need to see them. So the fact that these guys were wearing them down to their ankles is insane. And they love the place of honor at feasts, self-explanatory, and the best seats in the synagogue, and greetings in the marketplaces, and being called rabbi by others. Oh, yeah. But woe to you, then we go to verse 13, but woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. Wow. How do they do that? Well, they impose burdens on them. They make them go through hoops and ladders and, all this nonsense that, they make it impossible. They shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. For you neither enter yourselves nor allow those who would enter to go in. See, there's those that are never going to make it, and there's those that are supposed to make it. These guys are not only are they sabotaging themselves, but they're also sabotaging those that are supposed to get in. What do you mean, Alan? Not everyone's supposed to go to heaven? Who told you that? Unlike the movies or everybody's funerals, not everybody that dies go to heaven. I think it's weird that everybody thinks that everybody goes to heaven or that everybody is supposed to or should. There's rules of engagements. There are rules of engagement, and I guarantee you less than 80% of them are doing it. Less than 20% of them are doing it, which is less than 80%. This is not McDonald's. Many are called. I didn't write this. What do you think? Many are called, few are chosen. Narrow is the way to life, broad is the way, right? The majority are called and on the broad path. Few are on the narrow path. Narrow path records. Remember them? Few are on the narrow path. That path narrow, it says that it's like restrictive. It's like barbs are heading your way. You're going against the barbs. It's like everything that could possibly keep you from walking that narrow path and actually advancing and going forward. Why do you think the majority, if you've been doing Christianity for any amount of time, why do you think the majority of your friends and family have tapped out and have left and are no longer serving God, or they're serving a perverted version of Him? Their perverted version of Him, because it's a narrow path. Few are chosen. It's restrictive. It's not easy. Why do you think they use words like remnant, elect? Gideon. Oh, there's too many people. We need to narrow it down. 300. Jesus. Oh, there's too many people. I need to narrow this down to 12. By saying, eat my flesh and drink my blood. And he gave them no explanation of what he meant. That's anti-Torah. We can't do that. And so they didn't. And so they stopped following him. And he didn't even bother to explain it to them. See? You shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. Neither you enter, nor do you allow those who would enter to go in. Verse 15. For you travel across sea and land to make a single disciple, and when he becomes a disciple, you make him twice the son of hell you are. These poor sods that I'm talking to on Facebook, that's what happened to them. They don't know what the Bible says. They only know what they were told the Bible says, and the Bible says you can judge others. Oh yeah, their final jab at me was, alert, heads up everybody. We can't judge anybody, but Allan can. That was their conclusion. And then they're shut out to correction. You can't correct them, because if correcting them is judging them. Telling someone that they're not going to get a trophy just for showing up, you can't do that right anymore. Did you know if you're at a little league game, you can't go, hey, batter, 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 hey, batter, batter, swing. You can't do that. You can't do that anymore. What else? If they're fluid in any way, shape, or form, truth is fluid. It's their opinion. You can't argue it. You can't touch it. It's against the law. it can be against the law. People can actually take you to court. Pastors, if you tell people that this is sin or that's sin, you can get in trouble. Hate speech. You have to be inclusive. You have to be willing to accept everybody where they're at, whatever they think they are, however they think they are, and whatever they think is true or false. A concerted effort has been made in the last, 16 years to do away with absolutes. It makes it difficult to be able to share the truth of the gospel with people, especially if truth is subjective. Well, that's not my truth, Alan. I can have. Let's take the Corinthians, the out of context use of 1 Corinthians 5. One of the guys was having sex with his dad's wife, his stepmother, and Paul says, "Man, this you don't even read about this in the pagan magazines. The pagans don't even do this. And what have you done? You've done nothing about this? Hell, I'm not even there, and I've already condemned the guy," Paul says. He was talking to his church leaders regarding his church and his church congregant. To be able to say, well, that means I can judge people, that's insane. Anyway, I'm sorry, Alan. I believe, because I love her, that I can have sex with my wife's, my dad's wife. See, that's what we would hear. We can hear that today. You can't condemn me. You can't tell me I'm in sin. You can't kick me out of the church, or you really can't. You can't say anything bad about me in the comments of this Facebook post, because I believe it's okay for me to have sex with my dad's wife, with my stepmom, because I love her, and it's not sin because I love her. I hear this all the time. I literally not about stepmoms, but I hear this all the time. This frame of this mentality, this demonic delusion, Thessalonians, this demonic deception. Now, why would my son be calling me? Because he doesn't know I'm live. Oh, let's put him on the phone. No, that's not good. I am live with 500,000 people right now, Corin. Hello. I'm live on the internet right now with 500,000 people, and half of those people are going to buy a book. We're rich. I'm live right now. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? No, nope. Doesn't work that way. Nope. No, it doesn't work. Dude, I'm live. You're not taking that jacket back. It's my jacket. You'll have to find a different jacket. Bye. I can't even say what I was going to say because that's culturally inappropriate. It's not politically correct. Real life with Allan Aguirre. I'm going fishing, so I want that jacket back. What's wrong with that guy? All right, I'm done. Let's. Any questions? Any questions? Observations? Anybody have anything? I know we've got some people out there. It's not 500,000 people. In faith. No, whatever. I don't do this for numbers. I do this because I was told to do it. All right. Any questions? Anybody have anything to do? If not, we're going to call it. This is what I need my Jeopardy music. One day. I've been saying that for years. It doesn't take long to do it. I mean, I could probably get it done in about 15 minutes. Why haven't I done that? I don't know. Because it's not like I'm just sitting around doing nothing. All right. That was your 2-minute warning.
The views and opinions expressed during our broadcasts are solely those of the broadcast producers, hosts, and/or guests, etc., and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the Travelog Network, its sponsors, or affiliates.